16 years. That's how long the gap between the release of Super Mario World on the SNES in 1990 and the release of New Super Mario Bros. For the DS in 2006 was. During that time, a lot had changed. Nintendo started to outgrow making 2D games because, well, 3D gaming was the future. And for a long time, people thought 2D Mario was basically dead, just a relic of the past. But much to the surprise of just about everyone, it absolutely wasn't. And on May 15th, 2006, we would see the start of a brand new 2D Mario game series, the new Super Mario Bros. Series. For this video, I'm going to specifically be focusing on the first entry in the series, and how I think it changed 2D Mario. New Super Mario Bros. DS starts off with a plot we are so used to at this point that is it even relevant to mention it? The princess is kidnapped and Plumber Boy is here to save her. After all that, we get to the first level and oh my god, it's a walking PNG. Yeah, I don't know why, but most of the enemies in this game are just sprites with animated walk cycles. I guess it's to improve performance, but when I went to go back and play this game for this video, I used an emulator with upscaled graphics, and these sprites really started to stand out. Anyway, the level itself is pretty standard for a starting level in a Mario game, just an area to help the player get used to the controls and new moves. But one thing that makes this level stand out is the introduction of a new power-up, the Mega Mushroom. This power-up turns Mario into a giant and allows the player to destroy everything in their path and rewards the player in 1-ups based on the amount of destruction they caused. The Mega Mushroom isn't the only new power-up either. This game introduces 3 new power-ups to the Mario series. The Mega Mushroom, as I mentioned before, the Mini Mushroom, and the Blue Shell. The Mini Mushroom does exactly what you expect. Mario gets small. Now, you can argue that this isn't really a power-up, but more of a power-down as Mario can't even stomp enemies anymore. But it does allow you to squeeze into tiny holes and go through mini pipes, and those can lead to a bunch of cool new areas. The Blue Shell allows Mario to turn into a shell while running and defeats any enemy in its path while also bouncing off walls and breaking bricks. This power-up can be very chaotic at times, but is extremely fun to use. Although the first level only introduces the Mega Mushroom, the Blue Shell and Mini Mushroom become very important later in the game. The first level also introduces one of the main things New Super Mario Bros. DS changes about the 2D Mario format, and that's the importance of exploration. While the player is stomping around as Giant Mario, if you're not careful, you can destroy a pipe with a secret area inside. Now I know secret areas have been a staple of 2D Mario ever since the original game in 1985, but this game greatly emphasized the importance of them with the introduction of star coins. These collectibles, while not required to beat the game, incentivize some players to check every corner of the level, scouring for each one. Pretty much all levels in this game have at least one hidden path or area that houses a star coin or some other secret. Every 2D Mario game past this would follow this idea of hidden areas with the incentive to find them being star coins. After beating the first few levels of the first world, the game introduces the first tower. Instead of having a mid-castle and main castle like Super Mario 3, this game instead opts to have a tower level, which basically is just a vertical castle. The player has to scale up the tower, avoiding enemies and obstacles that are usually trying to crush them. After reaching the top, the player has a fight with Bowser Jr., who, as you progress through the game, gets stronger and stronger. But for the first fight is laughably easy. While I'm on the topic of this specific tower, let's talk about secret exits. Now these did exist in Super Mario World, however they are way more fleshed out and better done in this game. One of the first of this game being in this exact tower. I know, it's almost like I planned this and wrote the script. To find it, you have to go in this one little room with a bunch of moving stones. If you go through a secret opening on the right side of the room, you enter a secret area with a yellow pipe. Now if you want to, you can go through the yellow pipe and end up at the Bowser Jr. fight. But if you want to be a cool guy and actually find the secret exit, you have to use the Blue Shell power-up to break through these bricks and go through this red pipe. After that, just go to the flag and boom, secret cannon unlocked. Cannons allow you to skip huge portions of the game and make this game extremely fun to speedrun. Very similar to the secret warp pipes in Mario 1, which allowed you to skip through most of that game as well. Now, secret exits don't always lead to cannons in this game. Some of them can lead to secret levels, toad houses, or even the castle of the world you found the secret exit in. The castles in this game are also some of my favorite castles in any 2D Mario game, with each one having a unique boss with different attack styles and different ways to defeat it. For now, I'm just going to talk about the first castle of this game. Of course, being the very first castle of the game, it's extremely basic. Introducing the idea of lava to the player, basic platforming over said lava, it's nothing too crazy. Although I do like this section where you jump from tight ropes over lava and have to avoid the fireball things coming up from the lava. The boss of this castle is none other than Bowser himself. It's insanely ridiculous how easy this fight is. Just jump over him using the conveniently placed platform and dump him into the lava. Bowser really needs to stop having these buttons that literally drop him to his death. After World 1, the game gets a lot more creative and each level feels really fresh and new. One of my favorites being the third level of the second world. This level starts off normal enough, but once you enter the pipe, you're down in the sewers and you have to navigate around them, solving puzzles, finding secret areas. This is one of the most unique levels in the game as it doesn't fall to the Mario format of just going right the entire time. That's not to say that every level in this game is just hold right and avoid some enemies though. One thing this game does really well is making lots of levels extremely unique and stand out. Some other cool unique levels include World 7A. This level's all about pipes. Basically every pipe you see in this level you can go through. It's almost like a maze and it's extremely fun to find the fastest route possible. World 8-6. This level sees Mario scaling a giant volcano as lava starts to slowly fill it up, causing the player to move fast and always be on their toes. This level is very similar to the Mario Bros. Arcade game in the fact that if you run all the way right, you're going to end up on the left. This allows for cool ways to hide secrets and makes the player think about where they'll end up. Finally, World 7-3. This level you ride a giant wiggler and have to avoid enemies falling from the sky onto the wiggler. This game is always presenting new and unique ideas to the player. Another thing New Super Mario Bros. DS does really well is the bosses of each world. As I mentioned before, each boss is unique and different, which sadly was never brought back, as every game after this would use the Koopalings for every boss battle. Since I already talked about the World 1 boss, let's move on to the World 2 boss. The castle itself is pretty great. The inside portion sees the player having to dodge a bunch of falling spike balls, while the outside portion is mainly focused on dodging bullet bills. Also during the outside portion, there's a mini mushroom, which if you hold on to is pretty useful later on. The boss, Mummy Pokey, is a mummified Pokey. Wonder who saw that one coming. Which the player has to hit in the head in order to damage. The boss constantly burrows into the ground trying to jump up and hit the player from below while also shooting these metal ball things, and overall is a pretty easy but fun fight. If you manage to hold on to the mini mushroom throughout all of this, you'll be rewarded with being able to access one of this game's 2 secret worlds. World 4. I really like this idea of rewarding the player for beating the boss with the mini mushroom, as the fight becomes substantially more challenging when you're a lot floatier and can only take one hit. World 3's castle is filled with skewers and womps. Although I do wish they were less lenient with the speed of the skewers, as they do feel a little slow and makes this level a lot less challenging, the womps are a very welcome addition, and they do a great job at making sure the player is always moving. After making it through all that, the player faces off against Cheap Skipper, a giant purple Cheep Cheep who swims below the player and tries to damage them by jumping up and bouncing around everywhere. The key to defeating this boss is just jump on its head 3 times. Although I do love the design of this boss, I really wish the fight itself had more to it. I think there was a lot of potential to have skewers occasionally coming up from the water, as they were featured a lot during the level part of this castle, but nonetheless an okay fight overall. World 4's castle is where, in my opinion, the difficulty of the castle starts to ramp up a little. In this castle, the player has to jump across swinging platforms over lava and dodge thwomps that try to crush the player. This level is decently challenging, and I really like the placement of the star coins in this level. The boss here, Mega Goomba, is honestly one of the most fun fights in the game. Although I do think it would have been cool to see the return of Goombas from Super Mario 64 DS. To damage it, you have to press a button which brings up these platforms, which allows Mario to get high enough to jump off and hit the giant Goomba. After 3 hits, the Goomba goes down and the player progresses to the next world. World 5's castle is full of moving conveyor belts and piranha plants falling onto them. Similar to World 2's castle, if you beat it with a mini mushroom, you unlock a secret world, this one being World 7. However, you have to bring a mini mushroom from another level, as this stage doesn't give you one. This is something 8-year-old me would have loved to know, because I searched this stage for a mini mushroom for longer than I'm willing to admit. The boss of this castle is none other than Petey Piranha himself. When I first played this game, I hadn't played or even heard of Sunshine before, so I recognized Petey as the guy from Mario Baseball. To defeat him, you have to make him slip and fall on ice and then jump on him. After doing this 3 times, he kinda just explodes. Rest in peace to the Baseball King. World 6's castle is honestly pretty basic, and I'm not really a big fan of the level itself. But the boss fight is my favorite of this game. You fight against Monty Tank, a Monty Mole who somehow got a hold of a tank and is ready to cause a rampage. The mole tries to damage the player by shooting bullet bills and throwing bob-ombs at them. Every time the player damages the mole by jumping on its head, the tank gets taller and gets another bullet bill launcher. I think this idea is really creative and done super well, and I'd love to see this boss return in a future Mario game. In World 7's castle, you ride along a bunch of snake blocks as they create a path for you to progress. During this ride, the player dodges things such as amps, thwomps, giant spinning spike balls, and burners. The boss of this castle is Lackey Thunder, a Lakitu with cool glasses who rides on a dark, stormy cloud. This cool guy throws spinies down onto the player and sometimes even shoots lightning down at them. To damage him, you must wait for him to fly down to try to hit you and jump on his head then. After doing so 3 times, he is defeated and the player is able to move on to the final world, World 8. What I love about all these bosses is that they're just altered versions of basic Mario enemies that are seen all throughout the game. Mummy Pokey is a Pokey, Cheap Skipper is a Cheap Cheap, etc. Instead of going for the basic Koopaling fight that Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World went for, this game opts to be more creative and creates unique bosses so the player's always wondering what to expect next. The final world, World 8, actually has 2 castles, the first featuring a fight against Dry Bowser. Dry Bowser throws bones and shoots fire at the player, which you of course have to dodge. One way to defeat him is to run under him when he jumps in the air, but if you have a power-up, you can just run through him by damage boosting, making this fight extremely easy. The second and final castle of this game is a lot more difficult. The first portion of the level part of this castle sees the player navigating through what is basically a maze. To get through this section, you have to find these question mark blocks which flip the stage upside down and allow access to a ton of new areas. But when you flip, the enemies also flip, and sometimes are placed in positions that make it hard to progress. The second portion of this level has the player choosing from 3 paths. If you choose the wrong one, you get sent back to the start of the section. After finding the correct path to take, bottom, top, then middle, the player is finally able to make it to the final area of the level and face off against— oh my god, he's dead! Oh, wait, never mind. Instead of facing just Bowser, you face both Bowser and Bowser Jr., and this time you aren't able to damage boost through them anymore. To make it so you're able to get past them and press the switch to defeat them, you first have to defeat Bowser Jr., who you have to throw shells at in order to make him fall over so you can jump on him. What makes this difficult is that you also have to dodge Bowser's attacks during this as well. He's constantly shooting fire at you and makes it a little hard to focus on Bowser Jr. After you defeat Bowser Jr., Bowser gets a little mad, and hey, I don't blame him. I did just murder his son right in front of him, so I probably deserve it. Bowser now will jump high enough for the player to run under him and defeat him and save Peach. I love how unique and different this castle is from the others in this game. When I first played it, I was so confused but also in awe at the same time by the stage flip mechanic. It's such a unique and cool feature and I would love to see it returned. The boss fight is amazing too. I like how it forces the player to actually fight by making them have to defeat Bowser Jr. first in order to defeat Bowser. New Super Mario Bros. DS is a tragically underrated game. This game introduced so much to the 2D Mario formula that I'm genuinely surprised that it's barely ever talked about anymore. Even with all the other new Super Mario Bros. Games to play nowadays, this one manages to be unique from all the others and is in my opinion the best game in the series. Sure, those other games have their strengths, which I will talk about in my video on each of them respectfully, but still, none of them managed to have the uniqueness and charm of this game. If you've never played this game before, please give it a try. It's an absolute blast.